he's from the Open State Foundation. That's the English title in the Netherlands. His organization, where he is a board member, is called Hack the Overheid, or Hack the Government, as it would be translated to English. And they have played a very prominent role in the Netherlands in the advocacy for open data, for governments opening up the data, their data. And one of the ways that they have been doing that is by organizing app competitions. So having people competing by designing ads together, getting it together, working together. And he will tell more about this principle. Welcome.
Thanks. Hello. We've talked a lot about apps already. We'll also talk about apps, about whether there's an app for that or not. So let's look at some apps. This is Snelste Pontje, an app in Amsterdam for the ferries, because there's a very local problem to Amsterdam, is that if you want to go to the north side, which is becoming an increasingly more popular pastime these days, you never know which ferry to take, which will be the fastest. So you're on your bike and there are like several ferries and a bridge. And this app is a mobile website that just gets your location and it gives you an advice on which ferry to take. This is highly specific to Amsterdam, but for those people who love Noord, it's a lifesaver. So that's one app. Another app is this one, Toilet Finder, which helps people. I've got a specific problem. But I always leave a bar without going to the toilet. I always forget. So when I'm biking home, I have to find a toilet. And this is based on available data. Getting a list of all public restrooms in the city is pretty easy. It takes you talking to the municipality, but after a point they will give it. And then you can make an app like this. It's also pretty easy to do these days. And this can be useful. There have been mobile apps made with the same data. And it's a bit gender imbalanced, because there's only one real toilet and the rest are urinals, but it helps me. And if I talk with policymakers about economic benefit, this has direct economic benefit. If people are not peeing against random objects in the city, you're saving money. Churches are not crumbling because of the historic rocks being peed upon. I think this is an economic benefit. We always have to validate our economic use, but saving money is also money. Another one, this is the winner for one of the competitions, is Sola. This is, you put your phone on your roof and it checks which direction it is on and the inclination. And if you don't input the size of your roof, it will tell you how much solar output you can generate from your roof. So it's very specific. And it also uses the location to see which subsidies are available for your specific case. And this was a winner because it uses a very smart approach and the phone that you already have to turn it into sustainable energy. So I really like that. And another app, this one is called History, which uses archive material of video and photographs that are in municipal archives and contrast that with the real situation right now. So you can look at buildings in the city, how they used to look and how they look right now. And you can look at historic video footage of areas. So it's highly locative and it uses the archives that are usually forgotten. Nobody goes to a municipal archive to delve into the files, unless it's your business or your study goal. I would never do that, but I could see myself using this. And one final one that I had overseen, but this one is really nice. This uses the Rijksmuseum database of images, and it applies a face-finding algorithm on the images. So you can browse by gender and by period. And it uses faces it found, and it doesn't do face similarity yet, so you could maybe at some point cluster paintings based on who's in them, but it detects faces and it cuts those out for you. And this is one approach of the digital humanities, where art students can use big data approaches and algorithms to actually see things in the collection that haven't been seen yet. So why do I show all these apps? These apps have all in common that they were made in an app competition based on open data from the commissioning governmental body. And this is a trick we came up with. Like app competitions, we got some money from the city of Amsterdam to do something with open data, and there wasn't a lot of money. And so we're like, what do we do? And we thought we'd make a competition where people can get the open data from the city and do something with it, and they get a money prize. So to get a lot of engagement around that small amount of money and data, it seemed to work really well. And the people didn't really care about the money prizes, which were nice to have, but the fact that they were recognized as contributing valuably to the city and making these apps, and they had an award show where everybody could come up and get an award. That was really, people invited their families because they were proud that their app was being recognized. So the app competitions worked well, and we did that as Hack the Overheid, which is a nice way to hack the government. And we use hacking in the traditional term of the meaning of the word. So this is the Hackers movie, you might have seen that. But actually we are curious, we try things out, we try to use systems as far as they go and see what the system can do. That is the traditional meaning of hackers. But in the real world it's not as glamorous as this. We don't have Angelina Jolie. We're usually just a bunch of dudes and girls sitting with laptops making stuff in the place at a hackathon. And that's how it usually goes down. We have hackathons where our programming community and designers come together and make stuff. And for instance, one of the hackathons was on this historical fortress island, and we do them all over the Netherlands all the time. And we had a bunch of these hackathons. We got over 100 apps, like several hundred. I think maybe 500 people participating in these various hackathons. But we're never going to top the fortress island anymore, but we're doing our best. At some point we did the apps for Netherlands competition, where we did apps for the entire of the Netherlands. And success breeds its own children. So at some point next month we're going to be in Parliament to do an app competition in Parliament, Apps for Democracy. And there's going to be a sequel for Apps for Amsterdam, like the dreaded sequel. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But it's moving by itself right now. And we're getting sub-networks, for instance, around cultural data. The cultural institutions in the Netherlands need to prove themselves to the public, to show that they're relevant and that they exist. So they're getting really on board with opening up their data. They want to throw it all out there and say, like, have it, use it, do something with this. And that's pretty cool, because, well, we've got like massive image banks with all those historical images and art images coming available. So, to come back a bit, this was built all on open data. Maybe you've heard about the concept of open data. It's becoming popular and hip right now. Open everything. And it's based on the idea that all government data that's not like really sensitive should be open and accessible by the public. And we as the founders are all net people, net children, young people who are grown up with the internet, and we think this is the right thing to do. This is a moral position. And because most of us are also programmers, we wanted to have it machine readable, be able to access it with our programming skills and do stuff with it, transform it, mash it up. So open data is good, at least so goes the word, because it creates transparency. You can see how government is organized. It creates ownership, that the public can be an owner of the same data and do stuff with it. It creates innovation, both within government, because they see how badly their processes are organized, and on top of government, because people do stuff with that data that the government never could have thought of or procured within a reasonable budget. And it creates engagement. So that means that the government is participative. People can do stuff with it. But, so we were promised something like this, ponies and rainbows. But the reality is not this beautiful, unfortunately. But there's been, the success of open data has provoked a lot of discussion right now. And that is good, because many of the applications I just showed you are one-offs, are prototypes, and they're not really sustainable. They don't make money, they don't, like if the developer gets hit by a truck, the app will be gone. But we need to make them open source, we need to make business out of those applications. Because, yeah, we want stuff to become better. So we're now looking into getting more stakeholders involved, both from government and more market parties, get funding involved for the applications, and make something that's really useful to government or people within the market. Another one, we saw some data storytelling yesterday in the program, and most people don't know what to do with data. This is a data portal for the UK, it looks pretty cool, but not many people have the skills to do stuff with data. And even storytellers, like journalists, usually get stuff with numbers or wrong already, let alone that they can work with data. We saw some good examples that can work, but mostly journalists have a hard time dealing with this. And so we are working right now to create broader literacy within the Netherlands and also on the European level, to teach more people how to work with data, to teach more journalists how to work with data, to teach people to program, because we think that programming is an essential skill. And I think that's going well, but it's going to be a long process. And finally, the promise was that open data will create transparency, that government will become transparent. But that's not true. Really not. Because if you make data public, then the processes of decisions will go to places that are not public. If you put a light on a square where the deals are being made, you put a camera there, people will make their deals somewhere else. If you release data, you can always obfuscate things. So transparency will not be affected by open data, but I think the other goals of the open data movement are worthwhile enough to just go ahead. But, so, let's go back. What is the actual aim of the movement? So open data is one of the parts. And the app competitions that we did, and the hackathons, are just an excuse to get people together. The apps that come out of it are an incidental side product, because we just want to create a better government. We want to engage people to talk together, and create more deeper engagement within the networks. And we started doing this because of a problem that I recently came upon. And it's mostly a systems design problem. Right now in society, I think we saw it a couple of years ago already, there's a lot of chaos, stuff is changing, that's visible. There's a vacuum of authority. The government doesn't really know what to do with the digital realm, so the authority is a bit going away. But the internet people, us, we got a sense of control. You've seen Kickstarter or other examples. We've got the idea that we can use the internet to do stuff. And that's created, with my friends and myself, a lot of restlessness. And I think that is becoming the reason why this open data movement is picking up steam. At some point during all the open data stuff we did last year, the minister came out on national television and said open data is good. And I'm like, if the minister's on board with this program right now, it's not the best model for sustainability, because it's good that the decision makers are on board, but they don't want uncertainty. They want to have a certain thing. So the successes of the app competitions, they want more app competitions. And I don't know really if that's going to be the best way forward. So I've come across another mental model to think about this, about the uncertainty. And this is a model by Venkatesh Rao, and it might be a little bit complicated, but I'm mostly interested in the right upper quadrant of this, about how you can use uncertainty as an engine for innovation and for cool stuff. So we want to increase uncertainty and build systems that eat uncertainty really. We want to create, he calls them hydras, because with startups, with prototypes, with apps, if one of the apps dies, you make 5 new ones. And if one of them is a success, it's good enough. So the hydras create an abundance generative system where, actually I want to make a hydra breeding ground. We want to make lots of new hydras that can create new cool stuff. So just some steps how to do this. We started doing this by starting small and nearby, starting our own city, creating applications from a nearby. So don't try to boil the ocean. Do it, just do what you know, and do it with some friends. You have to find people you can work together with, and you can build a community around that and enable others to do stuff that you could not do by yourself. And finally, you have to do something. We started with doing stuff, and these days, doing something is more important than how good it is. So that depresses me, but it also really gives me a lot of courage to just do stuff, because doing something in itself is an act, and actions have more consequences than talking. So you just do something, and then if it's good enough and people start talking about it, you can always do it better, but the initial act is, I think, the most important part to get something going. So I think we have made some successes with the app competitions, we've made some nice applications, but there's still a lot of work ahead of us. And I want to ask you guys to help us do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thanks a lot, Alper, for your presentation. And maybe to come back to that last thing you said, maybe it's good to just do stuff and then we'll see where it's going. But maybe take that back to the question that you posed in the last session. To what end? I mean, what is the concept behind it? Can you tell a little more about the ultimate goal of doing this?
Yeah, well, if I try to say what we do is we try to create, remove institutional friction in society. So we want to make people be able to do whatever they want without being obstacled by barriers that are outdated. So that is the ultimate goal. And apps and open data are just part of this. We want to create a better government that just works for everybody. And that's like nice to use, and friendly, and interesting.
And can you say something about the results then? What has come out of the competition so far? It's from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, that actually has contributed or is showing maybe direction towards those goals?
Well, the engagement has been pretty grand, and most of the data in the Netherlands is open right now, or becoming open. So on that field we're done, so we don't have that much to do anymore on the open data field. So we're looking for a bit of a broader perspective and see like what still remains to be done to reach the real goals, and not just open up all the data and then we're done. But yeah, we need to do more than just opening up the data.
Right, because there is a goal behind opening. I mean, open data in itself, I think that's interesting, but I guess to a certain extent that's just a start.
Yeah.
Right?
And the idea is that government can work better for everybody in society, and open data usually starts working for people with smartphones. And the people without smartphones are left behind a bit. So we also need to figure out how to make it work for everybody. Or how to give everybody a smartphone. Maybe that's the other solution.
That would be a great solution, maybe not. But to come back to that, you say like we want to be governments to work better, interact better with the citizens. Are there some apps produced in your competition that have done that already? Have you some examples that you could share with us?
We showed some financial projections where you can see what government spends using visualizations. Those really put the stress on government. And initially, the original guys who sponsored the agreement are right-wing politician guys, because they want to cut spending. And to be able to cut spending, you should first have to show that there is spending. And you can point at it and say, like, oh my god, there's so much spending here. And they wanted to have the financial data open so they could lobby for cutting that. So that's a double-edged sword a bit. But also there were some cameras in the city that do license plate recognition, and they released that data. And they didn't secure it very well. So people could look up certain license plates and see where they had been in the city at what point. So it was both a security leak, and it showed that government cameras really detect a lot about what's happening in the city, and that you could find yourself and your friends in their locations. And nobody really knew that was possible.
Are there any questions in the audience at this point? Yeah?
This is really, you mentioned absolute democracy, which is a really, really nice idea, but isn't the problem with the public politicians' trust rather than like convenience to actually like engage in the process of democracy? And do you feel that the apps can maybe have some kind of like an impact on trust, or sorry, lack of trust between the people and the government? Certainly that's the case in the UK. People do not trust politicians at all.
Well, to have that trust, you need to be able to hold politicians accountable, and they need to be accountable. But that situation in the Netherlands is that most political records are not really open in a friendly way yet. So our focus will be to get that open for the Netherlands, first and foremost. But yeah, we're not going to fix politicians and their accountability problem using open data, but making it that politicians can't renege on their agreements and that they can't lie. We have one website called Politwoops, where we store the deleted tweets that politicians posted. So we monitor all politicians, and if they said something on Twitter and deleted it, we show it. And there have been some notable tweets by Republican Congress people in America, by Geert Wilders, our nationalist populist, that have been exposed that way. And well, that also cuts both ways. Like politicians could be more efficient in tweeting stuff, but they should know that they're being watched by populists. That's interesting.
Was another question down here?
Maybe this is more of a comment. We are managing the Helsinki region InfoShare Open Data Initiative here in Pavilion. I think one of the ways to go around the suspicion among civil servants and politicians is to actually understand that everybody is in everything for selfish reasons. That is also true with decision makers and civil servants. If you can show to the public sector that there is benefit for them in open data, they actually will support. And it's transparency is a double-edged sword also, because it sounds like the only reason to do with that opening of data would be accountability. But if you can actually show that, you open your data, you get better apps, you get your data sorted out for you, they are quite willing to work with the nerds to make it happen.
Yeah, but those motivations are usually not really obvious. Certain people have different motivations than they say they do, so you need to perform some aikido on them and turn them around in a way that's good for both of us. But, we try.
But it seems then that around the open data discussion, there is two problems to solve, or two forms of engagement probably. First, from the government to actually move them to open up, and then to engage the public to do something actually with that data. And can you give some examples on both of those two sides, what you have done to engage those two actors?
Well, we've been talking with politicians for the past 5 years before this all happened, and they always want to do stuff. They don't really do stuff. So finally we passed a political proposal where if there's a proposal passed through a democratic body, they have to do it. Because if they don't do it, the democratic body will come back to them and say like, hey, we passed this. Why didn't you do it? So that's the one way that we've forced engagement. But usually we just do stuff and then ask for permission later and see what comes up.
And if you look at the public, how do you engage the public with the open data?
Well, we've got a network of like maybe 500 or more programmers who just come to our events and they do stuff, and that's our main avenue of engagement. And the apps that they build reach more people, and we hope that through those steps that we can engage a broader public. But we're also trying to, for instance, right now teach people to program. We want to create a larger base of people who can